Misty. So
That's right.
her position keeps us all up to date with all the changes related to employers and benefits and changes in any guidelines. So we're really happy to have her here today. I don't know if Kitty has jumped on.
I'm here.
Oh, there is.
We are here. We are here. We are here. Like Horton hears a who.
Yeah. So we're really excited. We thank Kitty for partnering with us as well to bring this information out. As soon as I contacted her, she said, yes, we need to get this out to everybody, make sure everybody's up to date with everything. So we are so happy that US Super Yacht has partnered with us to make sure that everybody has this information. And then I'm going to let you guys take over because I'm not doing the presentation today.
But we are recording it. And so that we be able to let people see this after the fact as well, so that we can, because I know there's a lot of I had chatted with some other people that had also expressed an interest and they just couldn't come today. So this is critical stuff. So
right,
take it away.
All right, Miss Misty, we're
Okay,
ready.
All right, yours.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. Today's a very, very technical topic on ARPA and COBRA subsidies. So this applies to your employer group plan, whether you're large or small. So even if you have 2 employees, all the way up to 2,000 employees, it is definitely going to apply to you. There's a couple of things I wanted to make sure that we remember. Number one, it's being recorded. There's also a chat box, so you can use that chat box to ask me questions. Because it's so technical, I'm going to try to answer all the chat box questions at the end of my presentation today. I know you guys are going to have a ton of questions. If you will make sure to mute your line, it's really, really important to mute because otherwise we get to hear all your conversations. And I apologize ahead of time. You may hear a dog barking in my background, but I'll trying to keep them herded away. So I want to start with some basics. The ARPA, which I'm going to call it ARPA all day, stands for the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. This particular act is really used as a subsidy to pay for people who may have involuntarily been terminated from their job. And we're going to talk about involuntary termination as well. These subsidies are twofold. The first one is the employer funding a subsidy with reimbursement from the federal government. And then we have carriers funding a subsidy when they'll get reimbursed by the federal government as well. This includes medical, dental, and vision. It does not include your FSAs, and it does apply to state continuation. Sometimes it's called mini COBRA. So it just depends on what your state calls it. And I know that people probably have businesses all over the country. So I'm not going to try to name all the mini COBRAs all over the place. So the first thing to know is that we're going to start at step one. Step one is you are going to look at anyone who's been involuntarily terminated from November of 2019 all the way back to today. So an involuntary termination is someone who maybe had their hours reduced, maybe the store closed and they had to let their employees go. Maybe someone had COVID and wasn't able to return to work. But the thing to remember is that it is involuntary termination, number one. So things like no calls, no shows, that is a voluntary termination. If someone was stealing, someone set the building on fire, someone beat someone else up, another employee up, those are gross misconduct. Those would not qualify for any subsidies going forward. But anyone who had hours reduced, and anyone also who had, was laid off, it does not have to be a COVID reason. This is any reason whatsoever, as long as it wasn't gross misconduct. So step one is we have to identify those employees who were involuntarily terminated. So we know what the definition looks like of involuntarily termination. There are 5 new notices for everyone to enjoy, and I'm going to give you all the links and show you what that looks like in just a few minutes. So basically, the Department of Labor has issued some guidance for us. And the guidance states the following things. You must have had a COBRA qualifying event, which is involuntary. You must elect COBRA continuation coverage. You cannot be eligible for Medicare or any other group plan by a new employer. So, real life example, you terminated me January 1st of 2021. Your company has more than 20 employees, so you have to offer me COBRA. I was terminated because I was really bad at my job. I kept making mistakes. I gave wrong information. So I was bad at my job and you terminated me. I now qualify for premium assistance through COBRA. Now, if I went and got a brand new job that offered me health insurance, I am not eligible for your subsidy. I then must take my new group plan. If my husband is in an open enrollment period, I could take his plan. If someone is on perpetual furlough, for instance, they weren't actually terminated, they are eligible for these COBRA assistance subsidies as well. So keep in mind, the first kind of question you have to ask yourself, is it voluntary or involuntary? And you have to look at the dates as well. So step one is you have to notify your former eligible employees. Remember, eligible employees are involuntarily terminated or reduction of work hours. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back all the way to November of 2019 for your COBRA eligible group.
Christ.
Don't forget to mute your phone.
Yes, guys, please mute, because I know your hair is setting on fire right now as well. So
This happens all the time. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back to 2019, November of 2019, and you're going to start a list. You're going to list every employee that was terminated. Now, the second part you're going to do with your list is you're going to find out who was involuntarily terminated based on your list. So step one will be for you to notify those eligible employees that this subsidy is available to them. So there is a model notice that Department of Labor has come out with. I have highlighted it here. Pardon me. I have highlighted it here, and we will send you a copy of the slide deck so you can use all of these hyperlinks and make sure you're using the right notice.
Misty, are we able to put that link in the chat box just while people are on it, or?
Now you're asking me to do things that
Oh, well, no, it's you, yourself, and I. That's fine. We can wait till after. We'll make sure you guys get the links, guys.
Yes, because there are a lot of links, then you're going to want to use these. So you don't have to include the model election notice instructions. And here is a copy of the notice. Here's what it looks like. The one thing you need to remember is you always go to the very top of the page. The top of the page tells you exactly which notice you're looking for and what it is used for. Number one, this is the model general notice for COBRA continuation election. Now you'll notice in here that you as the employer have to complete a lot of data in this particular form. You have to supply the date of notice, who it's going to, and this is page one. Page two tells the person why are they getting this notice. It could have been that they terminated their employment voluntarily. It could have been that they were involuntarily terminated. So you're going to need to make sure that you're checking the correct box here in top of page 2. The middle part of page 2 also says who are the qualified beneficiaries. And I'm afraid if you're not muted, this is going to make you fall out of your chair. So if someone was involuntarily terminated, I'm going back to my example. I worked for Kitty and now I don't. She terminated me because I was bad at my job. So now I have an involuntary termination of employment. I know because I'm checking this, she checked this box for me right here, end of employment, involuntary. Now she has to select the qualified beneficiaries. If I was on coverage that was employee plus spouse, employee plus dependents, employee plus family, that entire premium amount is subsidized. That means you, the employer, are going to pay those premiums on behalf of the involuntarily terminated employee, and you will get reimbursed on your Form 941 where you file your quarterly taxes. There are specific timeframes, there are penalties to all this as well, and I'm going to go into all of those. So you, the employer, are going to have to front the money and get reimbursed on a quarterly basis. I will tell you that there was talk in Washington, D.C. last week about expediting that reimbursement. And so far, we don't have any further details. So right now, it is just a quarterly reimbursement, but we are hoping that the federal government will allow you to file on a monthly basis. I heard last week an idea floated of 10 days. So as soon as we get a little more information from the Department of Labor, we will absolutely share that with you guys. Now, the examples I'm giving you right now are just for Cobra. So that means your company has 20 or more employees. We're going to go over some continuation options as well. But let me get through this first Cobra notice first. So now we're looking at page 9. We're still in the same notice, but between page 3 and 8, it's all optional information. It's just instructions. Now you must include all 14 pages when you send the notice, the last known address of the former employee, just Cobra currently is. On this same notice, there on page 9 is you indicate who is listed on the plan, and this will give the employee, the former employee, the opportunity to complete name, date of birth, relationships, social security number, signature, print, address, telephone number. All of this information has to be completed. Page 10 of that same first model notice, which doesn't need to be sent by certified mail. It needs to be just mailed to the last known address. Now, if your company typically sends Cobra notifications by certified mail, I would continue that process. I would continue doing that. I think it's a very good way for employers to kind of cover all their tracks. And so you really want to do everything you can to prove to the Department of Labor, if you were ever asked or audited, that you in fact did send these election notices. So on page 10 of that very first notice, here is where these employees have the option to switch from Cobra coverage to continuation. In most states, you have a Cobra of 18 months, then you have additional months for state continuation. Here is where you would complete that form. Now, also keep in mind, you, the employer, have to complete the name and address section. You also have to complete the date of submission due date and the postmark date. So you guys as employers have a lot of work to do before you can even send these notices out. And by the way, April 1st was the first month available for subsidy. So you need to get on this as a super high priority. Step 2, now you have notified your employee that they were involuntarily terminated and that they are eligible to receive these subsidies. Now the terminated employee has to apply for premium assistance. Again, this is the model notice for the premium assistance, and we're going to look at it page by page. This particular model notice must be returned to the employer. And again, I am talking about this election form. The individual did not have to elect Cobra. They can re-elect it right now. Okay, so let me give you a real world example, because this is how I get things straight in my mind. Again, I worked for Kitty for 10 years, and on January 1st, she terminated me because I was bad at my job.
She's a bitch, that Kitty.
I didn't say that. Okay, so she terminated me January 1st of 2021. I did not elect Cobra. I didn't want Cobra. I wasn't sick. I didn't need insurance. So I did not elect Cobra. I now have the opportunity to enroll in Cobra starting April 1st, because I was terminated January 1st of 2021. So I have 18 months of Cobra starting January 1st of 2021. But I didn't pay my January, February, March premiums for Cobra, nor did I elect it. This ARPA subsidy says now I get a second bite at the apple. I get to re-elect Cobra if I want to, and I do not have to pay January, February, March premiums. Instead, I'm going to elect Cobra starting April 1st. And I'm going to apply for premium assistance from you, the employer, for my whole family. So keep in mind, you can take a second bite at the Cobra apple. You do not have to pay back premiums, and you can put your entire family on Cobra as well. So here's a copy of the premium assistance summary. Again, you had to be involuntarily terminated. You must elect Cobra coverage, including a second bite at the apple. You cannot be eligible for Medicare, and you cannot be eligible for any other employer plan. Again, I am talking about Cobra, so these are your large groups over 20 employees. The next page of this notification requires the employer to, again, fill in a lot of information. So you must complete this portion for the employees. Where do they send this notice back to? Make sure you include the name and address for them to send it back to. The terminated employee must answer all of these questions. They must sign, date, print the name, and return it to you at this address. And now you, the employer, get to approve or deny this coverage. Now, many of you are probably asking yourself, how in the heck do I know if Misty got another job? Can I ask her for proof of other coverage? You can ask me all day long. You can beg me. You can send me a certified letter, but I do not have to respond. It is up to the assistance eligible individual. It's up to me, the ex-employee, to tell you the truth. If I do not tell you the truth, I could be penalized if my last employer ever found out. Now, how you do that, I don't know yet, but we're trying to get more guidance from Department of Labor. The next page, and again, we're just talking about applying for premium assistance. The next page also gives you information for dependents, including all of the viable information for them, making sure they're not eligible for other coverage. You have 3 opportunities, that's 3 dependents. I have 4 children and a husband, so I would need to attach a second page to enroll my entire family in this subsidy. This is the next page of that still Cobra subsidy application. You want to make sure that the participant has all of the information in here, their address, telephone number. You want to make sure that they are checking this box if they became eligible for Medicare or if they are eligible for another group plan. So this is, again, a very detailed form that needs to be completed. Step 3, now we're talking about continuation of coverage. This is your state continuation. So these are for the employer groups who are under 20 lives, so 1 to 19. So now your particular small group does not have access to Cobra. Instead, you use state continuation. There is a guide and another notice for state continuation as well. You want to make sure that you're using the right notice for the group size. Now, this particular form is just for state continuation elections. It is mandated by state guidelines, but here's the kicker. We don't have states who are stepping up to the plate yet to give us their ARPA rules. So Florida, for example, we don't know what the Florida Department of Insurance is going to require carriers to do, what kind of forms they're going to send. Department of Labor has just left it up to the state and the state wishes using their guidelines. So we anticipate what's going to happen is that every carrier is going to do it a little bit differently. Yes, you're still going to use this model notice, but the carriers could come up with their own notice so that you can enroll them on the health plan. So if you have Humana or Aetna or the Blues, you're gonna probably find for your small groups a different notice from the one I'm providing here for you today. But it ain't coming out anytime soon. Let me say that. California is the only state so far that has issued these notices. In Texas doesn't even recognize ARPA as a law. So it depends on your state, okay? Florida is pretty conservative in their legislature right now. We'll see how quickly they come up with their own ARPA notices. So what this means is that you are going to have to find the right application for your state continuation notifications, and it is going to be based on your carrier. Now, there is also an election if you permit it, and I will tell you, I have been doing compliance for over 20 years. I never want to open a can of worms unless I'm going fishing. Okay, so do not go fishing on this. Do not allow your people to make a different change than what they had prior. Here's an example. You know, I worked for Kitty. She offered 3 different she offered 3 different health plans for me to choose from: an HMO, a PPO, and a super high deductible health plan. I was enrolled on a high deductible health plan when I worked for her, but again, I sucked at my job, so she terminated me. Now, Kitty has the option here to allow me to change from the high deductible health plan to the PPO or HMO. This is only if Kitty allows it. And I'm giving you a very solid piece of advice here when I tell you, do not allow elections. It is going to create so much more heartache for you in the long run. The other thing we don't know, because the Department of Labor hasn't put this out, is my deductible going to carry over? You know, some things like that. We just don't know some of those answers yet. My guess is no. But again, we don't have guidance from Department of Labor. And, you know, you guys are in really great hands. You are going to have the best assistance in helping you determine which notices apply to you. You're going to make sure you're going to get a lot of assistance from T. Spencer Samuels and the great team over there, just really trying to drill down on what notices you need. So this is again, I told you with all the notices, look at the very top. It'll tell you exactly what you need to know. So this is the continuation coverage election notice. So if you're a small employer under 20, this one applies to you. You'll notice that this paperwork's a little lengthy as well. Second page of it looks a lot like the Cobra notice. You have to enter the date of notice, the person, the terminated employee, and you have to also complete, or the employee has to complete this after you enter the due date and check the appropriate boxes. So let's say that T. Spencer Samuels was a small employer under 20 employees. I worked for them, Kitty fired me, and I did not elect state continuation. Notice I'm saying it's a small group and I did not elect state continuation at the time it was offered to me. So she fired me January 1st. I didn't take state continuation when she offered it to me the first time. I have no second bite at the apple. When it comes to state continuation, I cannot go back and take it with this election notice. I had to have taken it the very first time. So keep that in mind. So I didn't take the coverage. I am now not eligible for a subsidy or the opportunity to continue on with my state continuation. This is only for a former employee who elected state continuation and was paying those premiums on their own. So keep that in mind. Big, big difference from your Cobra eligible groups. The next page on this one also asks you who you are going to cover. Remember that you can include employee plus all the way up to your whole family, as long as they don't have coverage anywhere else. You'll notice too on this page, there's a lot of stuff in italics. Anything in italics means the employer needs to include all of these dates. That means you're going to have to go back to each involuntarily terminated employee and offer them coverage and give them the right dates in order to qualify for these subsidies. This is the continuation coverage election form. Remember, names, dates, make sure you're entering all this information appropriately. This is for the terminated employees going to elect coverage. This is again the next page. This is for switching continuation benefits. This is still included in the notice. You need to have the name and address. The mail and return date is also very important. And then any dependent information that you need to put in there as well. Step 4. We're halfway through. I know it's a lot. The expiration of premium assistance. So this is telling, so number one, we have notified folks who either Cobra or state continuation. We've notified them. We've given them their enrollment form. Now we must give them a notice of expiration of premium assistance. This also is an employer responsibility. This means that you guys are also going to have to complete this expiration of premium assistance and send it to everyone who elected to take any kind of premium assistance. Now, this is what this form looks like. Again, always looking at the top to find out which form we're using. This is for expiration. Here's the kicker. You must send this to any AEIs or assistance eligible employees between 15 and 45 days before their notice expires. So some of you employer groups are thinking to yourself, okay, I'm going to put all 3 of these notices in there and I'm done. Not so fast. You cannot send the expiration notice with the original notice because it has to be anywhere between 15 and 45 days before they expire. Again, keep in mind that you're entering the date of the notice, who it's from or who it's going to. You are checking the box to say you reach the end of your coverage continuation period, that could be Cobra 18 months or your state continuation. It could be that the premium assistance is done. The premium assistance ends on 9/30/21. So in my examples I've been giving you, Kitty fired me on January 1st. I am enrolling in coverage with Cobra. I did not enroll for January, February, March, but I do want the subsidy for April through September 30th. And after September 30th, at this point, the the premium subsidies end. Now I can cancel my coverage effective 9/30/21 and never had to pay a dime. I can continue on my Cobra and pay for the full premium. I can do all of those things. You also want to make sure that in this paragraph, you are supplying the correct dates, when the premium assistance ends, the date the premium assistance ends, and what the new cost will be. So if I want to continue on my coverage after September 30th of 21, you would need to tell me how much I need to pay. Okay, step 5. Step 5 is the Cobra premium assistance and special enrollment periods. This is the form you use if someone was terminated involuntarily and is already on Cobra. So when Kitty fired me, I took Cobra and I've been rocking and rolling on my Cobra, paying my own premiums. But now I need to make sure that I get this step 5 completed. Now, these people are currently enrolled in state continuation. They had involuntary termination. So when my Cobra premium assistance ends, now I am also eligible for a special enrollment period, and I can get into the health insurance marketplace or healthcare.gov to enroll in an individual plan inside or outside of healthcare.gov. So what this means, real world example again, Kitty fired me on January 1st. I elected Cobra. My Cobra will end after 18 months. And now I am eligible to get into the marketplace or healthcare.gov and buy an individual plan, and I may or may not be eligible for subsidy there. It depends on my income. So you also qualify for a special enrollment period when you reach the end of your maximum coverage period, which is 18 months. This is what the model notice looks like. Again, you're going to use this if someone is currently enrolled in Cobra. You want to make sure they had an involuntary termination. You also have to, as the employer, make sure that you're providing this notice to the folks with all of the information in italics completed. Your Cobra your Cobra began this date, it ends on this date. Here are all the coverage options available to you. I would say do not give people options, give them the plan that they should have Cobra'd off of originally. You want to make sure that if you are offering different options, you give them a list of those options, because that is there too. The second page is the election portion, which we've seen many times already. Again, everything in italics needs to be completed. If they elect, the terminated employee fills out that particular part of the plan. Again, if you are looking in further down the form, you see the same information here. I would elect to continue my Cobra. This is something different, and now I'm going to make a new election. Again, I'm highly recommending that you do not allow that unless you're trying to funnel people onto a certain plan. So we have a lot of questions that are unanswered by the Department of Labor, the state of Florida, and carriers. One of the things we're doing is we're putting together a master list of the carriers and what forms they want and how they will accept it. The one thing that we do know is it does include dental and vision. So medical, dental, and vision. We do know that it does not include your FSAs. We also see that it applies to a reduction of work hours, and I mentioned that lots of times today. It also applies to anyone enrolled in healthcare.gov right now. They call it the ACA marketplace. They call it a lot of different things. But if I didn't take Cobra from Kitty and instead I went to the healthcare.gov and got coverage there, I can drop my healthcare.gov coverage, come back to Kitty and get the subsidy from her. So here is one big repository of places. These are all the PDFs or Word documents with all of the notices. You also want to make sure to look at the FAQs the Department of Labor put out. Sometimes what the regulation, sometimes what the Department of Labor does is they put out frequently asked questions rather than writing regulations. And I'm kind of getting the weeds here on how it all works, but FAQs are really good because they kind of give you an example of what your company might be going through. Unfortunately, you guys have a ton of what ifs. So you're going to ask me, what if this happened or what if that happened? And I'm happy to answer all those because everybody runs a little bit differently, even though Cobra is a federal notice. But you want to make sure that you use this as a handy guide, and it gives you the dates. It kind of tells you a little bit about what the form is all about. And it gives it to you in a Word or a PDF document as well. So I am happy to provide the presentation with all of the links to you. And I would really appreciate if you want to ask a question or have a discussion, you could unmute yourself one by one. You can put it in the chat box, and I am happy to answer those questions as well.
Hey, Misty, first of all, this is Kitty McGowan, that raging woman who fired you so many times last year. But I just want to say, wow, it's a lot, and you did it in such a brief period of time, but very, very clearly. And we so appreciate you taking the time here today. And to all of the USSA members and such that are here, we'll definitely be posting this back out to everybody, and giving you guys the links to everything that Misty's going to be sending as well. But I'm sure that it's a lot to process. I've had a couple conversations about this over the last few days as we were leading up to this, but I mean, as an association, that's where we work hard, and with partners like Kelly and T. Spencer Samuels and Lisa, to make sure that we bring you the most up-to-date and the most encouraging, not even encouraging, but the most clear information that we have. Now, Misty, just as a quick aside, what was the driving factor in this? Because we're kind of at the ebb of this pandemic, and now to put this extra stress on employers at this point, what was the driving force with the Department of Labor to do this now?
It was actually included in the last stimulus package, the $1.9 trillion package that was passed.
The last one in December?
No. It was in March.
Oh.
So it was the 1.9 trillion passed March 7th. This was one of the little things that was tucked into the bill.
Shocking.
There's a shocker.
And, I follow federal and state regulation pretty carefully. They are working on an infrastructure bill, and there are some additional items that would impact employer groups in this new infrastructure bill.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very good.
So we'll definitely have to keep our
yes. Does anybody have any questions of Misty?
I just wanted to add, T. Spencer Samuels is here as a resource and a consultant. We partner with US Super Yacht Association to bring you this updated information, and we will be sending our contact information out because we know that this was a lot of information. Am I under 20? Am I over 20? Which notices are required? We know it's a lot of information in one 30-40-minute call, but we are here as a resource. You will be able to respond to our email when we do send out this presentation. This is recorded as well. We can send out to all the members. We are more than happy to respond. As brokers, we'll be pulling all of our termination for all of our companies, backdating it all the way to November to make sure all these notices were sent out properly to all the involuntary terminated employees. I recommend whoever you're working with, making sure that you align yourselves with them and make sure that they are doing the same for you. But we are here to answer any questions for you after this. We're not going to just drop the big ball and walk away. So we're more than happy to assist.
You know, Kelly, the one thing I didn't mention is I told you guys that for your Cobra groups over 20, that the employer pays that premium is reimbursed on their 941 quarterly tax. I didn't
Oh, you got dropped off.
tell you how that state continuation premium is paid. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me again?
Yeah, you
Am I
said,
back?
yeah, you're back.
Okay. What I didn't tell you is how state continuation premiums are paid. The carriers actually pay that premium and they get reimbursed by the federal government. So if you're a small employer, you're not going to have to front the money for those premiums ahead of time for your state continuation participants. It's only those Cobra eligible groups that you'll need to front the money and then be reimbursed. I'm sorry, I overlooked that.
One other question, since we're having to have employers go back to, you said November of 2019 on any involuntary terminations. What if you had, you're all Cobra group, you had terminations, your employees elected to pay for Cobra, and then had a period of time on Cobra and then did find some other, another job with group benefits. Are they eligible, those employees eligible to come back now to the employer and say, I need premium assistance for that 6-month period where I was where I was paying the crazy Cobra rates from you?
So yes, as long as the employee didn't have access to other coverage during April 1st of 2021 through September 30th of 2021, they can come back and enroll in the coverage without paying back premiums.
So if they were laid off last year during the pandemic, they paid the Cobra for 6 or 7 months of last year, secured other employment with other Cobra jobs back in 2020, and are now on a different Cobra plan currently since last year, then the employer is not then responsible to go pay back the subsidies for those people from last year.
That is true.
Okay.
The subsidy is only available this year for April through September.
Okay. Then why is having to go back to 2019? That doesn't make any sense.
Because if I enrolled in Cobra starting December 1st of 2019, my 18th month of Cobra would have been April, and I would have qualified for a subsidy.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question, Misty. I don't know whether it's relevant. We broke quite a lot of DBA medical coverage. So that is US citizens working on defense bases, and not necessarily on the mainland continent of US. Now, what would your thoughts be if you have, because we have both large employers and small employers that we broke the medical care for, as well as all the other DBA Longshoreman Act cover that they get. But yeah, so what I'm thinking is if you have an American citizen working in Kuwait or a couple of them, and then they are very, what's your expression? I would love to know they suck at their job. So they're then repatriated back to the US. And of course, they've now no longer got any medical coverage.
Yeah.
What do the employers then have to get involved with this at that point, do you think?
Well, that's one of the gray areas that we just don't have guidance from Department of Labor on. They just don't address everything. And
Right.
I mean, my best guess, knowing legislation, is the spirit of this law is that everyone who was involuntarily terminated get their coverage paid for at least 6 months. That's the spirit of the law. And so I would say in your situation, someone who was in Kuwait working, they sucked at their job, they got terminated, they come back to the mainland, they're still eligible for COBRA.
Even
So
though
they
it
would,
was an out-of-country job, but they were doing as a DBA here in the States.
These are all
Again-
out of country I'm talking about. And they're working for US companies because they're the only
Yeah.
companies that can have the contracts on those
Yeah.
defense bases. So they will have employees, and it won't be local employees, it will be US, because generally the management of these areas are either US or Brits. And of course, if they're Brits, they come back here and they go straight into the system here. But if they're US citizens, if they finish the job in the normal course of events under DBA cover, the DBA coverage stops. Now, if they're injured or anything, of course, that covers on until they're 60 something. But it's just those people. I need to just, I will tell my clients then that this is a bit of a grey area, and it might be a good idea just to make sure they've got this themselves up to speed on this. I think. Don't you, Mr.
I think so too. Yeah, I agree. Especially if they were covered under, pardon me, the medical health plan, even when they were in Kuwait, if they were still American citizen working for an American company, they had coverage.
Mm.
I would
on
say
an American base.
yeah. So I would say, yeah. I mean, again, the FAQs from Department of Labor are so vague, and there's so few of them. But I really, in order to cover all my bases as an employer, I would absolutely include them in this. The penalties are pretty stiff. It's about $250 for each person that you don't notify. And remember, there's 5 notices, so that's a lot of money when you start adding them up.
So those penalties are per form, per time frame, per employee.
Yes.
And keep in mind too, because I know we spoke a lot about the over 20. Keep in mind, because they haven't determined, each carrier hasn't determined whether or not they're sending these notices out. For our under 20 market, you are still going to be at this time responsible for sending those notices out until someone communicates something different. So, a broker gets a hold of Blue Cross, your broker communicates to you, Blue Cross Blue Shield is now taking over the notice requirements, then you can kind of take it off your plate. But until you've been notified, am I correct, Misty, that those notices are going out, you need to assume as the employer that you're taking those on. Am I hearing that correctly?
You are. And I will say that California is requiring the carrier to send out the notices for small groups, not for COBRA groups, but for your small groups in California. Now, not a lot of other states follow California, but it is definitely something I'm seeing on the radar. Now, it begs the question though, if I'm working with, let's say Humana, and I have 15 employees, and I terminated 7 of them, how does Humana know they were involuntarily terminated? Maybe they all got in a big brawl in a fight, or drinking on the job, or whatever, and that was gross misconduct. So even if your carriers say, okay, well, we're going to notify, you do want to do some due diligence as an employer to make sure that those folks really qualify for these subsidies.
Now, I had one person ask me the other day, is that if it's a reimbursement on your 941s, you're still as the employer on the hook for the cash outlay for that money. And what happens if you don't if you know, it's like, if the two unbalanced with the subsidy versus the return versus the 941s and payrolls and all that time on that quarter, then how does that, though it doesn't matter, as an employer, you're still liable for all of that money.
Yep. It's going to be a hot mess
Now,
because
what about for the employee? Are they going to have to claim that money as income?
no,
Really?
they do not have to claim it as income. Absolutely not. Now, when going back to your first part of your question, I can see an employer with, 15 employees and they terminated 7 of them and they have to pay for family coverage. That's going to be a hit to their bottom line.
Huge.
And it takes so long to be reimbursed. There is no special provision at this point. Carriers can turn your entire group coverage off if you don't pay your invoice. So this is something where you really want to be working with your carrier to make sure that, if you're bringing someone on, you're paying the Cobra premiums, you really work with them and say, hey, can I get a 10-day grace period if I really can't afford it this time, or something like that, because you do not want your full group to get terminated.
That is not good.
So we wanted to make sure, Kitty, that this went out to everyone, no matter what size, because keep in mind, our under 20 market, there's penalties for not notifying the employees with these numerous notices. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're working with your broker to have that set up. For our over 20 market, we needed everyone to understand that there was a financial impact as an employer, and we were racing to get this information out to you. Unfortunately, even though it went into place on April 1st, most of the notices weren't generated until April 11th. So
federal government, right on.
So we have been working with our general agency to make sure that we were able to get this information out to you. And then of course, get a hold of the associations, make sure their members understand, and make sure that we make ourselves available as a resource for all additional questions. Misty, one last question that I did have is, when you're determining the state continuation under 20 and the Cobra, which is over 20, are they still using the calculation where it is the average number of employees over the past 12 months? So let's say that you're an employer of 30 employees, but you've laid off 12 employees over the last 12 months. Are you over 20 or under 20 for the Cobra?
I'm sorry.
Oop.
You use the same calculation that you would for Cobra any other year.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the last 12 months.
So it's going to be the average number of employees over the last 12 months. So you need to, as an employer, you need to make sure that you understand where you fall, because a lot of employers kind of balance between that over 20 and under 20 market. And you want to make sure that you know which guidelines you need to be participating in. And if you have questions on that, definitely reach out, please.
One other question that I had is that what is the timeline on these notifications, the original notifications? So if I'm a Cobra employer and it's going to take me some time to go back through all my records, and although I should have a great program to be able to do that, what is the timeline to get that first notice out, and when do those penalties start to kick in?
The penalties start April 1st. And you know what I'm going to do is, the presentation I just did for you guys really was a more refined, like a 2.0 presentation. I'm going to send you both the very basic one, as well as this kind of 2.0. So we originally provided some information as soon as this law was passed and signed. And it has all of the notification dates in it. I should have included that for you as well. I'll include both of those in my email to you.
I have one last question. We have
Simon, I love that you're raising your hand.
I know. Yeah. I was problem with private education in the United Kingdom is that you're taught always to raise your hand to ask a question. Yeah, we have yachts, Delaware registered yachts with American crew on board. Now that's a really peculiar thing because we may have a yacht with 25 crew, of which 12 are American. Just to throw that in the mix. So which bracket do they actually fall into? Is it and would they obviously, I would assume, fall under this this whole Cobra subsidy, do they?
If they are covered under a U.S. health plan, yes, and they are American citizens, yes.
Right. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Misty, we want to thank you very much, and we will be sending out contact information for any additional questions that anyone may have. Simon, please reach out for specific questions. We will get back to you as soon as possible when we make sure that we have the definite answers for you in writing. But we wanted to just say thank you to Misty for taking the time to get this information out to us and to all of the members. And we're really excited to be able to bring all this information to you guys when we're able to do so. But we encourage everybody to please reach out to us. We will be sending an email to everyone. So if you have any other follow-up questions, we're going to be sending out the presentations to everyone. So we thank you.
Absolutely. Please let me know if you guys need anything else.